This is Synopsis, a series of conversations about compositional practice in the framework of Abeceda Institute. My name is Neža Zupanc, and my today's guest is Maximiliano Soto Mayorga. Maximiliano, thank you for taking your time, and let's start with a couple of words of introduction about yourself as a composer.
Hi Neža, thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I'm so sorry that I'm always so nervous. What was the question again? I have to introduce myself as a composer. Yeah, so in the last, I would say around 10 years, I have been working on instrumental music, and a little bit of music theater. And when I say instrumental music, maybe it's important to say because some of my colleagues or nowadays in the scene there's some kind of divide between instrumental music and electronic music. And the way I am approaching this divide is just bypassing it. And when I say instrumental music, I am also referring to electronic music as part of the instrumental scene. Like, I'm not so much into programming, let's say. It's not my strongest point. I like what our colleagues are doing in the programming field, or I would just say related more to the luthier, like instrument building kind of practice. And when I do electronic music, I just write for it exactly as any other instrument. Just we have some kind of other multiplicity of instruments. Yeah, it's just to start like there because and maybe it's not a perfect start just to, if you say define your practice. I mean instrumental music, and then yeah, what is an instrument?
Perhaps since you start with this, why instrumental music?
Yeah, because the way I am working, or not only me, but also many other people, is to be in the position of some kind of interface or midwife, where I am doing this product that is a score. A score can be a piece of paper, or usually it's a piece of printed paper, but it can also be other stuff. I know an object that is given to a performer, and this performer will read this object and then bring it to performance on stage, usually on a stage being just the space where the action will be done, and is done from a musical perspective, in the sense that I'm writing the sound, the time, the movements of this performer. Yeah, so instrumental in this sense, where the instrument is this undecidable place between the body of the person, of one person, the performer. Let's say, for example, it's a voice, a singer. Then the instrument and the body overlap partially, at least. And in this overlapping, there are intersections between the person, let's say the person themselves outside of the stage situation, their history, their ways of understanding themselves, etc. And then there is the instrument, like in the sense of a historical perspective, a historical practice, an object. The singer, the body of the singer is particularly interesting because not so long ago we used to castrate singers, treat their bodies not as humans but as objects for for our pleasure, this kind of stuff. And in this overlapping, comes the figure of the composer. That's maybe a more, I don't know where to place it, but also maybe interesting is the position of the ethical position of relating to this instrument. Like this let's go back to this example where the singers who used to be castrated. Yeah, we could say today this is not an ethical position in the sense that we are without any consent uh, torturing or little children to be singers. But this castration in a more imaginary, symbolic way, I don't know how to frame it, is a little bit still there, not in the form of physical, biological castration, but in the sense of being held to a symbolic stance that divides your body as performer. It cuts your body as performer, and this cut is, for me, is very interesting. When I talk that I write instrumental music, I'm struggling with this situation.
In what sense?
In the writing sense, in the what will be written, how it will be written. Writing not as writing literally with a pen and paper, but writing in the sense of marking something in this that will be later that will take later this form of an object, a score, what we say is score. How can I come near to this cut in the performer, and um, which kind of social contracts will emerge from this encounter will define how I will come to the writing situation.
So, in a sense, could you say that these are one of the, let's say, since you offered this from the very beginning, do you consider this as a part of the composition, this perhaps line of thought or consideration of this?
Yeah, I would say that how you approach this problem defines the way you are enjoying the process. And in this sense, it defines what is your ethical stance towards the agency of the other person, of the your concept of audience, of public audience. Where are we placing the figure of this virtual audience? Because at up to some point there is always and you cannot really know who will come to your concert and why. And then yeah, and then there's the approach to approach a a performer means to approach the institutions that are helping this encounter, if it make it possible or impossible, and also how the encounter with the audience will emerge, and in which situation, who is able to be there, who is not, what or about which things can we talk about and which not, and who can talk and who cannot.
Can we take a step back and return to what you were just speaking to in a couple minutes? Because it seems very complex coming in, let's say, for someone with no context, perhaps also no context of all the notions that you are speaking of here, with, I'm guessing, some awareness of their movement, of their history, and go back to the start.
Okay.
For a second. Meaning, how did you get to composition? Are you, by disposition, an instrumentalist?
I don't know really how to answer this question, because there are like three possible options. Maybe, okay, the first one is at home of my grandfather, we listened to music in the radio. I'm not from a family of musicians. And then I was trapped by this experience. So we could say, yeah, it started in that moment. A second option would be I had a teacher in school that encouraged me to ask for my parents to buy me one of these Casio keyboards to learn to play the piano. So yeah, I started playing piano when I was around 14 years old, 13. And mostly learning by myself. After 1.5 years, I started taking classes. So when I was like 16, I started taking classes. And the third option that I really also like is that before starting with piano, I actually started with photography. Like you and I, Neža, are from a group of people that experienced the first digital cameras. Like we can remember the moment where this was analog and then suddenly it was digital. And so suddenly making pictures, I remember my grandfather knew I liked to take pictures, but it was really expensive to take a picture. And suddenly with the first digital cameras, he came with one of these 2 megapixel digital camera, like, I don't know, 1.2, something like that. And And I just started taking so many pictures, like when I was 10 years old. This must have been around 2002. And I just took so many pictures. And when you start, And then in school, I was we had a really good art and music department. And when you start in the visual arts, you are immediately encouraged to make your own products, like especially if you're into photography. The teacher used to tell me, yeah, you just take all pictures you can from where you live. What is your environment? It's not like they would tell me to try to copy a picture, you know, which is a main difference from the experience from a child that instead of a camera receives let's say a cello as an instrument, and then the teacher will say, yeah, look, you have to play this and repeat it, and to come to the moment where the child is invited to compose a new piece, like composing a photograph. Now we compose some piece of music. It can happen that this young person will never come to this moment, and that they spend their whole lives not having written a single piece of music. So maybe it was the visual arts tradition of, yeah, just go, and or maybe it was the teacher, because yeah, there I know, of course, I also had drawing lessons where you had to just draw and copy other stuff to get the technique. So yeah. um but the thing is, when you take a picture, the picture will be printed immediately without mediation to the audience, uh unless it will be curated in some kind of other stuff. And of course, I left photography very early, not because I didn't like it, but because I really liked uh, landscape photography. And in that time, I had a strange skin condition, in autoimmune thing, that I just thought to myself, yeah, it's not possible to travel with this skin. So I opted to change to music. When I realized a couple of years later, when I was studying music, I was a very bad student, and I had to study, I don't know what, Bartok for piano, and I never studied. I just came the next week with a small compositions done by myself, and I was like, teacher, how do I write this? Like, yeah. And then come certain point when there was like, maybe you should study composition, and I was like, what? I didn't even know that was a possible project. And then when I was like 18, I just applied for composition, convinced my family to help me. A part of them couldn't say no. And then I started studying composition.
If you had to name what you learned through photography, as I understand you point that out due to ascribing it a certain relevance in the way you started with composition later. What would that be if you had to put a word on it?
Mm, Um, yeah, maybe I'm improvising too much, but I would try to say it has to do with the memory, like with the printing or the marking of a certain point in time in your life, that you can go back to, trace it, render it through the printing of the camera photography. in the sense of in the situation of music is it for me when I'm composing a piece, it is still the same. Is this encounter with the time where you are for example, if I really like a poem, a way of reading this poem will usually be to make a music piece out of it during years, where I go back to this text and um, of course, yeah, and then through the techniques we learn in composition school and how the instruments work, how the pitch are working, the rhythms, the breathings, all this kind of stuff. Have a little bit of extra meaning that always slips through the cracks of the body of the symbolic structure that frames the instrument.
What does that mean?
What yeah, maybe not go back to the example of the singer, but there are little bits of and pieces of humanity that cannot be really grasped by the compositional practice of the thinking of the serialist practice of the to think in terms of intonation, tonality, um, temperament, systems, the physicality of the instrument, the physics of sound, how this in the physiology of the hands of the player, of the breathing, of the tongue, what is possible, what is not possible to do, how fast can they do it, for how much time. All these kind of details always leave traces of a human, a person that is playing it, and of a memory, and so on and so on. And then what interests me the most is some kind of I wouldn't say um, when you know when you write this score, be what it is, and another person takes it in their hands and then reads it and then gives you back this reading. I think if I as a composer have done my job well, then there will be parts of myself that I didn't really grasp while writing, and that will come back to me through the performance, through the staging of this performance. And this can open a path to growth, personal growth, to the expanding of the ways I understand myself, why the way of enjoying life. What does it mean to have a life, to live a life, and so on.
There an
Um,
example of that on a specific case that you could offer?
yeah,
Or is it too personal or
no, no. Um, no, because you know when it becomes too personal, it's an enigma to yourself. Like there are things that you cannot really understand. There are simply no answers, and the answer is this enigmatic process. So when it comes to the point when it's really too personal, it's like, yeah, it's even a secret that you yourself cannot really know. Like, yeah, but why? There's no question, no answer. Yeah, no, I am. Let me think. Yeah, for example, now let's do a little bit of publicity strategy for the what I'm writing for the abeceda festival in Bled this year. I started to a saxophone solo with Veronica, you know.
Mhm.
And I wanted to I didn't really know how I wanted to do it, but for a long time I was interested in composing a piece only with multiphonics. And to try to see, first of all, we start with the hypothesis it is possible. There are lots of other people that have done it. But then, how can it be possible for the particular situation of myself? And I just started playing with the instrument. Maybe it's interesting to know that I myself was playing saxophone for quite some time. Um, because the saxophone player is Polish, she speaks Polish. Um, and there are a lot of Polish artists that I like. I sadly I cannot speak Polish, so it will be embarrassing, but because I cannot pronounce their names right. But of course, there is Kieslowski, the most famous, maybe international level, and Szymborska, the poet, Grotowski, I don't know. And then I was like, yeah, now I have a saxophone player from Poland. Let's try to play with the Polish aspect of the instrument. And to get to and I started rereading Szymborska, and a whole movement started that didn't have nothing to do with the saxophone, but with the fact that she is someone that reads Polish. So if I bring one of the poems from Szymborska that I really like and embed it into the process of the composition, maybe something will be read of the way I am reading the poem in a mysterious way. And yeah, so we have to see what happens, how she will read it. We cannot know.
Yeah, until it's performed.
Yeah, and maybe not until it's performed, but maybe until it's performed two or three times.
Right.
Yeah, like this project of making a solo piece for one instrument with only multiphonics is something I have tried to do for 4 years and
Like
failed.
clavicula.
Yeah, I wrote
Sounds.
a flute solo, for example. Uh, it seems it was unplayable because of the A and B uh, fingerings in the nomenclatura of Levine.
Yeah.
Then after that, yeah, then I changed to R2 system. But yeah, and saxophone, I really didn't have the chance with saxophone solo, so I started. I did the flute piece because some crazy flutist told me she would play anything I would write, and then it was not the anything that she wanted, so it just landed in nothing.
Well, it's still pending. Might still get an opportunity.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe it's also not so good.
what
But yeah.
what is a good composition in?
Yeah, this thing that it traps you, that you see it and it's like, yeah, I want to do it. And but sometimes, for example, yeah, there's, for example, this cello piece that Urban Megushar played was also like 3 years waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody played it, and he just took it.
Mm-hmm.
Why, we cannot really know. But then suddenly a piece I thought was unplayable, stupid. Now is the piece the most played of my pieces, and not only by Urban but also two other people. It's premiered in 4 countries and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Perhaps to move on to the or back to the, let's say, overview of your compositional practice, of your base. What what would you say are the standards that you have in place for either, if you can apply it for, let's say, your opus in general, or for a specific piece, but preferably starting with what can one find in each, or at least most, of the compositions you have written up until today?
I don't know. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Is there is there something that you always have in mind when you're composing?
Ah, yeah, there are some pieces that I just write to try some technical stuff, but then just waiting for the chance to do a piece that I consider important, or um,
So, for example, in the second category, the pieces
yeah,
that you consider important,
would
what does give that quality to a piece for you?
uh,
And perhaps it's, if it's too vague, just on a case of a specific composition. What?
I think it, yeah, I think it's, I don't know, but let me improvise with an answer.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe it has to do with the amount of power that is given to you as a composer.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if a big orchestra in an important festival is trusted to you as a one composer, then you get an immense amount of power.
True.
And in this sense, I think like a Spider-Man movie says, then it has a lot of responsibility. Uh, who
Well,
was that? A bit of
it's
Marvel.
probably not only Spider-Man movie that says that. So.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it was the first. Of course, it's the first time I saw that in the film. What was I, 12 years old? It was like the same time
Mm-hmm.
of the music where I started to write.
Right.
So maybe it's a bit of a joke, but in this sense, yeah. And how the and then there is this extremely complex situation that is the question of equality in the programs itself, in the program concert themselves. Um, Wait a second. Um, for example, when I received this composition prize of the Berlin Academy of Art, there's this little detail that since it started, I think I'm the first Hispano-American in receiving this. Of course, not only the first person from Chile, so it comes with a recoil. It's not only the price, but then it's suddenly this small detail. And to this moment, to really be something possible, you need a chain before that has led to a way of thinking where suddenly a composer from Chile, from Latin America, has the possibility also to have access to this kind of recognitions. But yeah, and then you have so many examples of people that have received scholarships, tens of prizes, and so on. But then, in the moment they are dead, they are not part of the repertoire, immediately forgotten, and then, or that they are in the peak of their practice, their technical capability, but then they have to wait 40 years still to be recognized as a subject that is possible that is whose talking we can recognize and whose ideas are their subjectivation, their own the signifiers they have created are possible to be embedded in the concept we have of repertoire. So when you have the chance of having a little bit of access to this power of bringing being part of the repertoire of a big orchestra or of some kind of institution whose authority is taken for granted in an international level. In this sense, if it comes to this moment, as a professional, one has to be prepared. This is what I mean with an important piece. Maybe an unimportant piece is a piece you write for a good friend
All
who
right.
will play it because it's your friend, but not because of your go back to the castration, like from a Freudian perspective, if you or there's this quote from Shakespeare that says a king is a thing of nothing. So this nothing is what I'm trying to talk about. And it's not only in the perspective of the composition practice in itself, like when it also is a part of the technique.
I lost you at this. Nothing is what you are trying to compose. How could you explain that to someone?
This is what I try to say with the overlapping of instrument and human. There is in this overlapping as like a gap, and this gap you yeah, sorry for the maybe complete nonsense, but yeah, maybe this gap is something you can actually perceive. You can feel it when you're writing and when you are as an audience in a concert situation, when the music traps you for reasons you don't really know. So
And what would be
yeah,
again this gap in between? You were
between the instrument and the person, between the role of the composer and the of myself. Like for example, if you and I are good friends and I write for you a piece and you play it, then we are just the same. But if I am a complete no one that you don't know, and then you play my music, then the question is why? It doesn't make sense. And these the ways we try to, and then it has we come to the situation of power. Like why would you play, I don't know, Glier or Mussorgsky, people that have nothing to do with your life?
because
Yeah.
it's not about them.
Yeah, and this is the gap I'm talking about. Like they have had access to some kind of power. Maybe Mussorgsky had to die first to be so his music will be rescued from some kind of people. Like what what was the name of the guy that made the commission for Ravel? Kusevitsky, no?
Mm,
Yeah, it has to come Kusevitsky and see some potential in this music. From the market perspective, maybe for him, but then we also have examples like maybe Saariaho is a good example. Like, you know, we have these two figures, Saariaho and Rauta Avara. And you simply read the way people their country refers to Rauta Avara as some kind of reincarnation of Sibelius. And then Sariaho has to maybe wait until she's almost about to die to start having recognition in the last years. Yeah, maybe it's unfair because so Sariaho is a person that had recognition her whole life. She had commissions and so on and so on. But correct me if I'm wrong, but if I still have the feeling that, for example, that we could say, yeah, Sariajo is like 10 times better than Sibelius in all technical situations. Like not only from the composition perspective, the way she handles the electronics, the orchestra, her ideas, the way she's working is impressive. And then but still I would still say yeah, but in the general sense, Sibelius is still more famous, like maybe, but for what reasons? From her own land, that we have to come to the point where we say no, we have to wait that she is dead to actually recognize her job. Sibelius was I think 40 when he was completely funded by the government and so on. Like
So
in
again,
this,
how does this tie to the gap where we came from?
yeah, because
Sorry for asking you so many times. I'm still grasping.
yeah, no,
Is
it's
this
true.
the problem that you mentioned at the beginning? That this
No,
is like
yeah, it's true because this idea of a gap is not. This is what I was trying to say when. What are the conditions to understand? When you ask me what is it to write instrumental music, and then it's yeah, what is the condition to understand an instrument? And and this means also what is the condition to understand that a person will be considered a composer, and what does it mean to make an important piece of music with the relation to the power structure that allows you to say something. Um, and then I come to this situation where I say, yeah, look, I received this prize. You may say it's a really small prize or an insignificant prize from the Academy of Arts of Berlin, but then when they say, yeah, but you are the first Hispano-American to receive it, it makes a gap. Like, yeah, but why? You know? And when I'm talking about Sariaho, just as coincidence, because I have been listening to her work quite a while in this month, I asked myself, yeah, maybe it has to do with the way we understand power. And this is when Hamlet says I don't know if it was Hamlet. Oh, this is so painful. When he says the king is a thing of nothing,
I don't know either.
the nothingness. And this nothingness that happens in the big situations, big in the sense of who gets funding and who doesn't, who gets the access to the laboratory and who doesn't, who gets the chance to talk with the most experienced musicians that they will tell you immediately, look, this is how you play this instrument. And who has to stay with the manuals from 100 years ago, and not even like, yeah, it's Casella and so on. Even who has access to seeing the scores. Like in the moment I arrived to Europe, just if I wanted to be in Europe just because I wanted to, I could not have to, could not have the possibility because the student visa is absurdly expensive. I just came because my wife has the European passport. If it was not for this detail, I could not have had access to a library to study the music of Rebecca Saunders or whatever, the people that are leading in the ideas of orchestration, or even the something as maybe you could say normal as seeing the scores by Stockhausen. Not that I'm a big fan of him or anything, or even Albin Lucier, like small things, like, yeah, it's just a line. But to see this score, even if even the best pirates online don't get you this stuff.
Yep, true.
So, and then, yeah, and then you ask yourself, okay, yeah, but why? Why does this person play my music? And then you realize, yeah, the desire for of writing. Of course, you can live your whole life writing for piano and playing the pieces yourself. If you manage to live after 50 years healthy in this style, yeah, like so many composers have just died because of not having a health insurance. Like so many other, like it's so common. You may say it's so common to die like this, but it's a strange if you analyze the life, I don't know, of Julius Eastman, or not even analyze, just look how the ways he died, or uh, I'm so sorry, I forgot the name of this Canadian composer. You know this guy that.
But Maximiliano, just to stick to your own compositional practice, I would like to address still the more aspects, more, let's say, what else we could speak to here in order to gain insights for those that don't know anything about it, that this is the first encounter with anything but the performance of your composition. Let's say if someone hears, if that's okay, if I may interrupt you and
No,
please.
it's good that you interrupt me, because what we are talking about is something that I rarely get to talk about. I don't really know. We
Yeah,
are
and
conversing.
nothing wrong with that really, um, but I want to keep the focus on your practice here, uh, and let me let me take it to another question, perhaps. Something about the future.
Mm.
In a sense, do you have any specific aspiration, goal for what you want to do in composition in the future?
Yeah, but wait, you said the idea is that someone who is coming to listen to the compositions that they have a bit of more insight. It has relation with the future because when I think of the future, I think of the audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you're right, when I am writing a piece, I think, yeah, but who is my audience? When uh, after a concert, after a premiere, then comes the applause, and then I think, yeah, but why do you applause? Why exactly? Why are they doing that? I think the most happiest moment of my life was when after a concert the people didn't clap, they just stay in silence, and not because of some strange theatrical gimmick, but because the people didn't know if they should. When I think about the future, I think about this.
Mm.
Um, who am I writing for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know. Um, Sometimes writing is just a way of not thinking about life. Some um, because there is the danger that if you think a little bit too much about life, then maybe it's better to kill yourself. And when I write, I just postpone this encounter, that with this something that doesn't make sense. There's no answer. Why? No answer. When the
Mm-hmm.
child is asking you, yeah, but why is the grass green? Yeah, I can't find you an answer. People have given their lives on finding this answer. Why is the grass green?
Isn't it the
Or
color of photosynthesis?
yeah, but then why photosynthesis? And you go, yeah, because the thing produces, I don't know, like electricity with the sun. And you say, yeah, but why? And what is the sun? And why is the sun there? And so on. But in the practice of composition, this illusion that you will find an answer of why, uh, maybe our job is to bring to the table the fact that it has no answer.
Through
And
composition.
and then this mixed with the absolute pleasure bodily experience of sound and of time. Like when you go to a concert, let's say the concert long lasts, I don't know, 3 hours. And I would say part of the enjoyment of these 3 hours is that you are actually dying. in these 3 hours slowly, and you're just enjoying it. And then yeah, when I was I think this is my audience when I think of the future. It's just an audience that is enjoying this process. Um, and then when we talk about it, is when I come back to the thing, yeah, but how are we enjoying it? What are the ethics implied in this way of enjoying it? What are the conditions of power that allow us to have some idiot write for 200 people that are working with the ideas of this particular person and not the other, and then why me? And then it's a complete salad of of uh, of nonsense that is intertwined, and it's just yeah. Uh,
Would you call this like this? I feel obliged to mention the term of philosophy.
which
General, do you consider philosophy being a part of your compositional practice?
philosophy in the sense of ethics, yes, I would say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know.
no, it's. I mean, since since you speak about, I feel like you come out of philosophy at many points. I must admit also with a reference of our previous encounters and working together, and
Mhm.
also hearing you already in the past. Um, so yeah, I had to put that on the table.
Mm.
And I understand if it's too simple of a proposition,
No,
but
no, no. Yeah, philosophers that are working. Yeah, Slovenes are famous for philosophy. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe I started the first drug to philosophy is the infamous Slavoj Žižek that is like globally famous with this film, The Guide of Cinema, The Perverse Guide to Cinema. But then after you read a little bit of him, you realize the colleague Alenka Zupancic is much sharper and precise when it has to do with the ideas of how we are encountering pleasure and so on.
do you
How,
tie that school of thought and uh, of uh, of what pleasure is with the enjoyment as you speak of today?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Not okay. Anyway, we are now approaching the conclusion of this conversation. So I would like to touch upon. I know there's still a lot of things we could address, but I would like to touch upon of what I always ask my guests, and that is two things for the conclusion. First, two messages, brief messages. First one for anyone that is aspiring to begin with composition.
Uh-huh.
And the second one, and that is, I always now point out, with regard that you are also a composer that is still developing and you probably will the whole life. But at this point, what you can message to those people. And the second message for anyone that will, perhaps after hearing this conversation, go and listen to your music.
Yeah, amazing. I don't know. Um, Yeah, like if you are, I don't know, 14 years old and you're starting to think if composing is maybe the problems you have when you're a teenager is if is it possible? And then yeah, it is possible. Maybe our job is to not to think about the possible, but to the impossible. Not what we know is impossible, but to expand the things that are impossible. Like for example, yeah, pieces that were impossible 40 years ago today are very possible, or maybe 80% possible. So the question is to try to keep finding these impossibilities. In the technical sense, not only in the technical sense, but in the ways that play new ways of pleasure and so on. And then, yeah. The most complex thing is to find the laboratory practice, the possibility of having people that will fund your experiments and your failings. And if you don't find them, you have to do it yourself. There are many examples of that. It's not impossible. Yeah, but I don't know if I would recommend to choosing composition as a profession, or music at all. It's much more, but it's much better to listen to music. But yeah,
And
that's another question. Uh, and what was the message? Yeah, I don't want to tell you that that is easy or that it is worth it. It's probably not.
And was that for the listeners already?
Yeah, for the young people.
Okay. Well, agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Maximiliano, thank you for your time and sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you, and see you soon.